My topic is a topic that affects everybody in this room. It affects every Farm Bureau member, every Kentuckian, every American, and that is fiscal policy. You know, I've always thought that the federal budget differed from the state budget in that the numbers on the front tend to be the same, but the federal budget has a lot more zeros behind them. The numbers are mind-boggling to me. I can kind of sit back and close my eyes, and I can think about what 20 bags of mineral is, or 100 cows, or 10,000 bushels of corn. Those B's and T's, I have trouble visualizing that. But they are big numbers, and they're very significant numbers. Federal spending in 2013, the last year that's closed out, was $680 billion deficit. 680 with a B. And although that trend is down from the 5-year average, it's still an enormous number to be, as best I can comprehend it. And our total federal debt is approaching 17 trillion. That's trillion dollars. Kentucky Farm Bureau believes in balancing the budgets. We believe in spending restraint, reducing the rate of growth rather than increasing taxes as a mechanism for that end. Another thing that concerns us is tax policy. One item I want to speak to you about for just a moment is Section 179 of the IRS Code that deals with expensing items. You know, when you're talking about taxes, you get to charge off expenses. So Section 179 is an alternative to setting them up on depreciation. Depreciation, you'd set them up over a number of years, and with Section 179, you'd be able to charge them off in a single year. That thing started out at $25,000, devolved up till last tax year, it was $500,000. And now it's reverted back to the $25,000 level. Obviously, farming has a lot of large capital expenditures, so this is a very important item for us. So I have these questions for you. Concerning the national debt, I'd like for you to give me your level of concern concerning the deficit in relation to not only the absolute level of 17 trillion, but also as a percent of GDP, and what measures you believe we should use to solve that deficit. Then I'd be interested in whether you would support the increase to $500,000 for Section 179 depreciation. And also, would you support eliminating or decreasing capital gains taxes? Thank you.
Okay, first to be Senator McConnell.
Yeah, well, with regard to tax policy, first, the Section 179 expensing provision is part of what we call the extender package. I think that'll be passed before the end of the year with probably a 2-year extension. So, and at the 500 level. So I think that will occur. I already mentioned the death tax. That's now permanent law. The $5 million exemption indexed to inflation is now permanent law. That'll save about 99% of Kentucky's small businesses and family farms. With regard to the deficit, at the rate the Obama administration is going, it'll be 20 trillion by the time they leave office. From 10 trillion to 20 trillion in one 8-year period. It's the single biggest rain cloud, if you will, hanging over the future of our country, the single biggest threat to keeping the American promise that every generation has made and kept, that they were going to leave behind a better America than their parents left behind for them. This administration's been a spending machine. It started with the $1 trillion stimulus. When they totally controlled the Congress, they could do anything they wanted to, and they did. The $1 trillion stimulus, Obamacare, the takeover of American healthcare, Dodd-Frank, Obamacare for banks, I call it, and an army of regulators crawling all over our economy. And the most conspicuous example of that, of course, is the depression in eastern Kentucky created by the president's EPA. Not to mention EPA's Waters of the U.S. regulation that would attack every puddle in America and give them authority over potentially every puddle in America. The biggest group behind both those regulations is the Natural Resources Defense Fund, both the president of which and his wife have contributed to my opponent. So it's pretty clear to even the most casual observer that on virtually every issue that you all care about, that this organization cares about, there's a dramatic difference between the agenda of my opponent and myself. The way to begin to tackle the debt is to get the economy growing. Too much borrowing, too much spending, too much taxing, and too much regulating has produced the worst recovery after a deep recession since World War II. This administration needs to be stopped, first by changing the Senate, and then we need to take a different direction in 2016.
Secretary.
Thank you very much. There are 17 trillion reasons why Kentucky needs a new United States senator. 2001, budget was balanced. We were scheduled to be debt-free by 2011, but Senator McConnell and his spending has continued. Indeed, it's 2 wars on a nation's credit card. Only now has he suddenly become concerned and wanted to restrain spending. Regardless of whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House, the common denominator over the course of the past 30 years, it's Mitch McConnell. For me, I believe sound fiscal policy, it doesn't begin or end with the arbitrary and unwise sequester cuts that were enacted by Mitch McConnell and so proudly championed. USDA should not be disproportionately cut in any manner, but Mitch McConnell put the USDA programs right on the chopping block and in the crosshairs with the sequester cuts. We need to be working to balance our budget the right way. That is by going through and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, making sure we're spending smarter. We eliminate the numerous tax loopholes that Mitch McConnell has created, deductions for your corporate jet. The list goes on and on and on. Each and every one of you know that sound fiscal policy, that's how we make sure that our farmers have a bright future. Under Mitch McConnell, the past 30 years, we haven't gotten that, and you just heard. He wants another 6 to get a self-promotion. You just heard him think that I somehow didn't directly answer Fritz's question. Senator, I do speak for myself. Women aren't supposed to just be seen. We will be heard. And I do believe in open and free, but most importantly, fair trade. We need a senator that actually is in touch with the people of Kentucky, listening to our farmers, realizing that the 179 section of the tax code, we need to make sure that the Senate follows the House's lead, and not just a 2-year extension as the Senate is currently proposing, but to make it permanent. That gives our farmers the access that they need to cash flow to be able to do their family business. That is what all of the businesses across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, especially 60% of our farmers who are small family businesses, need and deserve. You've already heard Mitch McConnell tell you what I told you he would do. Try to put words in my mouth and equate me to every national figure out there that doesn't understand our Kentucky farm families. I do. I speak for myself. I'm a strong, independent Kentucky woman who will always put our farm families first. Thank you.